When Bloodstained Ritual of the Night made its Kickstarter debut to the world in 2015, a part of me was ecstatic we were getting our mighty number Castlevania, but another part of me was bummed we were getting a spiritual successor to the Symphony of the Night era games, and not the classic-style vintage-vania games I grew up playing on the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy, and Genesis. I mean, Konami sure as hell wasn't gonna make any new Castlevania games, and the mastermind behind Bloodstained was Koji Igarashi, a man more known for the Metroidvania entries in the series. So, still happy to be getting a Castlevania reboot in any capacity, I buried my dreams of ever cracking a whip and dodging Medusa heads in a brand new vintage-vania ever again. Though that Netflix show was surprisingly pretty good. Smash cut to spring 2018 when my wish actually came true with the surprise release of Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, developed by Inti Creates, who were also responsible for other phenomenal retro throwbacks like Mega Man 9 and Blaster Master Zero, just to name a few of my personal favorites. While we're still waiting for Ritual of the Night to come, for the record, Mighty No. 9 had been released by this point, this is at least some reassurance that the new rebooted Castlevania series is in good hands. This also represents one of the very last Kickstarter stretch goals, so they may be taking their time in developing the game, but at least they're fulfilling their Kickstarter rewards. But about the game Curse of the Moon, it is not just a huge throwback to classic Castlevania. This game is overflowing with references to 8-bit and 16-bit action games, and you know what? I'm gonna play through the whole game right now and point out as many as I can. That's right, we about to get super nerdy on some Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. And this video brought to you in part by Sumo. Why not get your dog a hilariously oversized beanbag by Sumo? Sure, it's comfortable for humans as well, but think how cute your tiny dog will look on a comically oversized luxury beanbag. Thanks, Sumo. Alright, and who's ready for a tour through? Let's get nerdy through Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. We're gonna go through all the references that we can find. This is not just a love letter to classic Castlevania games, this is a love letter to that entire 8 and 16-bit era of gaming, so I'm convinced that Inti Creates really put in all these winks, all these nods, all these references of very specific reasons. They knew what they were doing. First off, before we even get started, before we are even pressing start, we gotta look at just not only the name, this logo, Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. Right away, that C in Curse. That is similar to how the Castlevania C looked in Super Castlevania 4, and then after Lament of Innocence, they redesigned the Castlevania logo to be more of like a crescent moon like that. Not to mention, I look at that C, and I can't help but think of another Konami franchise, Contra. Rest in peace to Contra. I think when Castlevania fans heard the name Curse of the Moon, Castlevania fans caught on immediately what was going on, because curses and moons are all over Castlevania games. For example, we have Circle of the Moon, Curse of Darkness, Dracula's Curse, and let's not forget that the Japanese name for Symphony of the Night was Nocturne in the Moonlight. And what is the classic line from Simon's Quest? What a terrible night to have a curse. And let's not forget that the other Bloodstained game is going to be called Ritual of the Night, which is of course harkening to Symphony of the Night. And also, before we get started, I was going to warn you, there are a lot of references here, but there is one that I guarantee nobody has noticed yet. I found some stuff, something extraordinary about this game, but we're gonna have to wait until the end. I'm just doing you a favor. Y'all ain't ready for this. Y'all aren't ready for what this game's got, okay? So we'll be playing on Veteran, but hey, shouts to this game having the casual style, unlimited lives, and here's a huge thing for anybody who is familiar with Castlevania games. Taking damage will not knock back the player. That's huge. We just went past it, but it said there's no penalty for playing this mode. So, hey, shouts for everybody being able. Everybody should be able to play all video games and have fun with them in their own way. So, it's nice they have this casual mode. Thumbs up, totally support this. All right, but we're gonna be playing on Veteran. That's just how we do. So we're here in the intro. We got this scroll here. There's a big scroll, you know, in the beginning of Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. It's kind of significant that there's no film reel marks on the side. So we are starting with the standard character, the reveal. The mist parting is very similar to Super Castlevania 4, and it's striking a cool pose and stuff. You see that in a lot of other games like Castlevania 1 and Dracula's Curse and Bloodline. However, instead of staring at Dracula's castle, Zangatsu's looking at the moon. So I thought that was pretty badass. We have started now. We are in the game, and before we even move. We got a lot of black up here at the top. We know later that gets filled out with your other characters, but it is significant. There is no life bar for the enemy. No boss life bar. It always was kind of weird though, that games like Castlevania and Ninja Gaiden always had like a second life bar there for the boss, even though like it's not necessary for like 90% of a level, so why? It's not, that screen real estate needs to go away. It's not really important. So, we start. We do not have a whip. We got a sword. But if you check our sub-weapon, we do have a whip. And this whip operates in a diagonal sort of way, similar to John Morris's whip in Castlevania Bloodlines. And it's also similar to Super Castlevania 4, where you could whip in 8 directions. But, you know, still having a sword, it kind of controls similar to Castlevania, like, you know, there's sort of a long wind-up and a throw to how he uses the sword. So it's not a whip, but still kind of operates the same. Let's move forward now. Let's actually start playing, because we see our first lantern. Let me tell you about these lanterns. This lantern's huge, okay? This is a huge moment. On this first screen, there are 7 lanterns. 3 of them, the first 3 of these lanterns, are elixirs. Pick up the elixir, and you get weapon. That's huge. And it's significant that the first 1, 2, and 3 lanterns are not hearts. The most common thing you get in candles in Castlevania games is always hearts. And hearts are actually not health, they're weapon energy. That was just a weird thing that stuck around throughout the, you know, most of the Castlevania series, but it never made any sense in like the greater pantheon of video games, especially for the time. Hearts meant health in like every other game. Here is the final lantern. Big moment here. Bop. That's a heart. Now, I'm gonna pick a heart up before it disappears. You pick up the heart. If you're familiar with Castlevania, you would know that that would go to your weapon power. Oh, and as a matter of fact, I'm sorry. Let me move my webcam out of here for a second. Okay, so sorry, you can see my weapon now. You can see that we're at 6 of 20. There's no actual way to lose any health on the screen. We have literally just started. It's impossible to lose any health right here. But they gave you that heart because they wanted to communicate to people that grew up with these games, know what they're getting into, and know that this is your classic throwback to Castlevania. This is your Vintagevania returning. They have changed things. Hearts mean health now. Well, they don't mean weapons, so you then can deduce it probably means health, right? And also, you see that area up here? We can't get up there. But man, you know, in games like Dracula's Curse, when I was playing as Alucard, I could turn into a bat when I was playing New Game Plus and get up there. Also, those staircases sure look familiar. And then when we got doors, classic Castlevania move, the doors are always checkpoints. Unlock the door, clunk, open up, clunk, close, and that's hella Castlevania. That's all Castlevania. Hey, I'm back. Alright, and then this is kind of similar to the first screen in Castlevania 1, is the entryway to Dracula's castle, which has been recreated in so many other Castlevania games. But yeah, just a simple room where these zombies keep appearing, though they are not actually, they're kind of like cool, like ghoul things, they're not really like zombies. Oh, and these are little ghost guys are kind of similar to other Castlevania enemies, and also, just look at these blocks! Big ass fucking blocks! That is how platforms are made in classic Castlevania games. Vintagevania games all got these blocks. Everything about this is just classic Castlevania. And it's also worth noting that this first level takes place in a train station, so there's clocks everywhere. But it's worth mentioning that this game does not have a clock tower level, though there are references to a clock tower. We'll get to that much later. Another huge moment. I like how this game wastes no goddamn time. Lets people know what they are dealing with. Sorry, force of habit, I have to check every single corner for possible breakable blocks. I didn't even notice this for the first time until like way later in the level. Normally in Castlevania games, all lanterns are just the same and it's a mystery as to what's inside of them. But this is huge that the blue ones mean different weapons, and that way you can choose to avoid hitting the blue ones if you don't want a different weapon. I think we should talk a little bit more about the special weapons. So I got this paper. Got this cool paper thing. So this is basically the holy water. In the early Castlevania games, the holy water was an underthrow. You kind of threw it underhand. I mean, later Castlevania games, it was a diagonal throw down. So this is the classic style holy water, however, with the kind of later Castlevania style of throwing it. We got rats. I like how certain enemies kind of blow up with like a nice like splotch of blood. Bop! What is this? We have our first breakable wall. However, we can't go in here. Can't go in here. Well, we can't fit in there. Man, if this was a Mega Man game or something like that, we could certainly slide. And we got this door up here that we can't go in, which means we must be able to come around from the other side of it, right? If you are not a Castlevania fan, you probably didn't even notice this stuff, but if you were a Castlevania fan, you absolutely noticed it. And you also probably tested this. Oop, there it is. Alright, all people that grew up playing Castlevania, or anybody familiar with old school Castlevania games, knows that the stairs are like the bane of your existence. Knowing how to work around stairs, when to go up them, how to get down them, and your relationship with stairs changes when you play a lot of old school Castlevania games. Usually you have to walk to them, and you go up like this, and there's no jumping off of them. In this game, there is again no jumping off of the stairs. However, you can jump onto them, which is really good, say if you walk off this edge, and so you don't want to fall down to your death, you can hold up and back on the stairs. And also, it's worth noting that I was playing a lot of Castlevania 3 in preparation for this video. When you go, it's so crazy how slow you go upstairs in Castlevania 3, in old Castlevania games. Like, your walk speed, like, halves. And it is really nice that your walk speed doesn't change at all when you go upstairs. That's a nice touch. Nice touch. Also, we got a heart now! It's not a steak, or it's not a rump roast, it's not a chicken, or whatever it is. There's no longer meat in the walls. And also, I got a little too ahead of myself there, but there's actually a lantern very close to that wall, so that you would potentially hit the lantern and break the wall at the same time. But it's such a weird thing to keep bringing up, but like, it's significant that in this game, hearts mean life, not weapon energy. And look at this nice skeleton, he's just hanging out. They're just pointing, hey, go this way, buddy. It's so nice of you, thank you. What a nice skeleton. Now we're on a train. I don't know if this is a direct reference to anything in particular, but like Konami games and a lot of 8-bit and 16-bit games, they love trains. Trains and roller coasters. Konami games love roller coasters. But like there are so many games that have some kind of train level. So this just feels like, oh, we have to have a train level if we're gonna go back to 8-bit style, you know? Chandeliers. Oh, the chandeliers don't hurt dudes? I thought the chandeliers hurt dudes. Up next, we got this dog. Now, anybody who's played the original Castlevania knows that there's the cats. They look like cats to me. Maybe they were dogs, but they sit and they wait till you get close and they jump off. This guy, though, I like how, if you notice real quick there, sorry, I killed him very fast, but he jumped off and the dog went to run towards me and then stopped and then jumped at me. In the original Castlevania, the cats jumped over you and then just ran. They just ran straight at you like a bullet. The dog jumps over you, starts to run towards you, stops, and then jumps over you. So if you bent down to hit it, you'll get knocked in the head. They know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They're playing you like a fiddle. And again, man, if I were Mega Man 3 Mega Man, I would just slide underneath here, right? This is I've seen too many gaps like this. I'm starting to get suspicious if this is your first time playing. These guys right here, they are not a very common enemy in Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, but they are actually a direct representation of the double skull guys in Castlevania games. Like they're some of the most classic characters, enemies in Castlevania games. The two-headed skulls that face opposite directions that blow fire at you. These guys are not skulls; they look like they're just kind of monster-ish looking type things. And though these types of characters are incredibly common in Castlevania games, they're actually quite uncommon in this game. But having this on the first level is very significant. So this boss right here, we're going to see a lot of little mini bosses like this. They're like different elemental style bosses like this throughout the game. These seem very Mega Man-ish. Mini bosses like this are not really that common in Castlevania games. So it's a neat little addition because we are just about the boss now. It's kind of fun to have a little mini boss there. What a nice dude. Nice skeleton. He's trying to help me out. What a good guy. And to my knowledge, like no real reference with this boss, just like, yo, look at this retro-inspired game where we don't gotta worry about hardware limitations. And just look how fucking gorgeous and giant this dude is. Shooting fire up in the air and having it rain down on you. That's such a common thing, you couldn't even like put it up to one game. It's a good time to mention, if I haven't already, that like classic Castlevania, once you jump, you are stuck to that jump. However, I will say that it is actually pretty significant that you can jump and then change your direction in air like that. Oop, like that. Jump this way, turn back. That's pretty significant. Yeah, and that looks real pretty. The little orb goes up. You would expect the orb to come down and you would have to grab it, but instead you just strike a pose on your own. There's no chance to grab the orb and then try and strike a pose when the music ends and stuff like that. None of that. So this right here, this is all Dracula's curse. This right here, beating a boss and then having someone to talk to. This is how you would meet extra people. Grant the Nasty, Sypha, and Alucard and Dracula's curse. I like that Zangatsu's kind of an asshole. So this has been talked about a lot. If you know anything about this game, of course you know that you can switch your characters on the fly, but it is significant that you can do it so quickly. This is very similar to Dracula's Curse, and we'll also find out how a little later this is very similar to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the Nintendo. And for the record, this is where, like, for a lot of people, the game really begins. We got Miriam, we got a whip. We're playing an 8-bit style game. Now it's Castlevania. Here's a fun diversion from Dracula's Curse. You can take him with you, you can leave him behind, or in this game, you can just kill him. And then you get your soul kind of like Aria of Sorrow. So we're gonna move forward to level 2, and also we don't have the characters kind of walk along the bottom, but this is very similar to the classic map style of classic Castlevania games. We will return with Zangatsu, but for now, Miriam's got a slide, which, of course, you know, Inti Creates, they came from Capcom. They've made Mega Man games. They made Mighty Number 9. So, you know, the classic slide, that's there, but also Simon Belmont? Richter Belmont in Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night had a cool slide. She is not quite as athletic and dexterous as Richter was. It's also worth mentioning that at this point in the game, you know, there are no power-ups for your weapons. I think that's actually, I think that's kind of smart. It was always a bit of a bummer that, like, when you died in a Castlevania game, it was kind of similar to Gradius in that, like, you lost all your power-ups. And then it was like the first 3 candles you got powered your whip back up, so it was almost kind of like not necessary. So that you have a full powered whip the whole time, and it's a powerful whip, and it's long as hell. I think it's kind of nice. It just kind of cuts through the bullshit. Makes the game's already got some tough parts anyway, so I like the idea that there aren't any weapon power-ups, but it is a significant diversion from classic Castlevania. Miriam can't whip in different directions like in Bloodlines or Super Castlevania 4, nor can she whip it around in a circle. But you know, that was something that was only really done in Castlevania, Super Castlevania 4, and maybe for the better, because as some people on the internet have made videos to point out that Super Castlevania 4, with the whipping in 8 directions, was almost too easy, but I still have a soft spot for Super Castlevania 4. Okay, these guys are great. This is a weird amalgamation of enemies in Castlevania. There are the knight guys. Usually they have a spear, and they just walk. They don't actually poke you, they don't attack you, they just kind of walk towards you, and they're just sort of like a big thing that'll block your way. Then there are also these skeleton-type enemies in Castlevania 3, and they would kind of move back and forth in these kind of very specific patterns. And so these guys are very similar to that, but they don't have any action, but they can absorb your special weapons. So you gotta hit them with your real shit. You got a nice friendly skeleton pointing us to go this way. Oh man, Zatoichi here can't make it, but bam, fucking little Miss Belmont can. Oh, and see these guys, similar to the shield dudes, they walk back and forth in a familiar pattern, but these guys attack. Very similar to enemies in Castlevania. Also one of Miriam's sub-weapons is the classic dagger. Oh, let's get that though. I think I need the upward dagger though. The upward dagger. Similar to a move in Ninja Gaiden. I don't know if you can really give the credit to Ninja Gaiden, but Ninja Gaiden has a move where you kind of throw a thing of fire up diagonally. There are lots of Castlevania references in this game, but there are also lots of Mega Man and a lot of Ninja Gaiden. We'll be seeing more and more of that. And I also want to say, shout out to Inti Creates, shout out to the geniuses who made this game. We are now in the ice level. See me walk back and forth and stop on a dime because I don't slip. It's an ice level. No sliding on the ice. I'm just so happy. It's like when you play a water level and then suddenly you can just breathe underwater. You're like, yes, awesome. I don't want to deal with having to die and asphyxiate. Speaking of dying, we have our Medusa heads. They're weird, kind of just monster-looking things, but these are the classic Castlevania Medusa heads. Well, and that almost killed me right there, and that's why I mean, listen, flying enemies are a problem in all video games. I just mentioned Ninja Gaiden. The birds in Ninja Gaiden are like the worst thing in the world. But anybody who's played any Castlevania game for more than a level or two knows the Medusa heads. They're the worst. Oh, and speaking of Medusa heads, we have big old bats. So if this were Castlevania 3 and we had Sypha, we could just cast ice magic and freeze this entire little lake here, but we do not at the moment. If anyone remembers the third level of Castlevania 1, we're dropping frogs this time instead of those little like gremlin dudes that you had to fight Frankenstein with, but yeah, we don't want to mess with any. So you don't want any of those frogs to come down because they're a pain in the ass to hit once they're finally on the ground, but that's not the last time we'll be seeing birds dropping annoying creatures in this game. Satuichi here. Zangetsu? I feel like I've been saying his name wrong. Zangetsu or Zengatsu. That's that dyslexia coming in, I'm not sure which vowel goes where. Stupid bats. Though I do like how those bats have like big open, just giant maws. Look how big its face is. I love how it has a giant mouth. I think it's funny. Those bats are very similar to the first boss in the first Castlevania game has a big old bat like that. And then those bats come back in the last level of Castlevania 1. But they're also very similar to the owls that show up in Castlevania 3. Oh, if I haven't mentioned it yet, the sickle here that Miriam has is basically the boomerang. And also, we get little power-ups because we have Miriam's slide. We can get that extra power-up if we were playing through. If we had killed Miriam and didn't have the slide, we wouldn't be able to get that. And now we have a little more weapon. It's not a direct reference, but I just like to pretend that this is a direct reference to the classic Konami game, the celebrated classic Konami game, Goonies 2. The ice levels in Goonies 2. I'm convinced, no one can convince me otherwise, this is all a giant reference to Goonies 2, which is a great game on the Nintendo. Not a perfect game, but it's a great game. People like to shit on it, and they shouldn't. And I always get the timing on this wrong. Yep. Hey, it's an old man with a staff. This is basically Sypha, the spellcaster from Castlevania 3. Your existence is unsettling to me. I'll leave your head where it is for now. What a dick. Alright, we got big old Kane. I will say this right away about Alfred. He throws that cane around just like Sypha did. But let me tell you, I went back and played Castlevania 3 again for this video. Sypha can hold her own. If you can get the timing right, she can stun lock dudes with her cane. They slowed him way down. He's like almost useless in this game, except for his spells. And we'll talk about his spells here in just a minute. So if we do this solo style, we get another attack for Zangetsu, which is a familiar jumping pattern. You see that type of like, you know, tight ball jumping. Man, you see it in Metroid, you see it in Contra, you see it in Ninja Gaiden. This is a very classic style jumping. Onward to level 3. There's a boat. We are gonna get to that boat. Always boats in Castlevania games. Let's hang out with Alfred here for a bit. We got his fire attack. His fire attack is very similar to Ninja Gaiden. There's fire and ice attacks in Circle of the Moon that are kind of similar, but they don't hang so close to Alfred here. Alfred's green attack, speaking of Ninja Gaiden, this is, I want to say this is kind of similar to the clone Ryu Hayabusas that you could get in Ninja Gaiden 2. He has 2 more magic spells that we will get to in a minute here. Also, now notice we are in a pyramid, sand, Egypt, desert kind of thing. Another classic 8-bit, 16-bit token. You have to have your ice level, you have to have your fire level, you have to have your train level, and then you have to have your desert level. They're just going through a checklist. Ooh, we haven't seen her big ol' axe yet. So the axe is as classic, you know, as the holy water. However, in this game, the axe works a little differently, so if I can get this right. Bam! Instead of throwing the axe overhead, it's just a big old fucking axe. So I like that subversion. It's the axe, it's a classic axe, but it's not. This also resembles Soma and others swinging big axes and swords in the GBA and DS Castlevania games. Bah! And of course, if we're gonna have our sand level, we have to have the level where you sink into the sand like this. Oops. How That miss. Perfect miss. This is maybe a stretch, but this reminds me of the one-up in Kirby's Adventure. Maybe this is a very common one-up. I just with the big one and the little up like that reminds me a lot of Kirby's Adventure. Maybe it's not a direct reference, but it's my video, so it's a direct reference because I say so. Therefore, it is truth now. Oh, hey, here's our fire level now. Fire section. Oh, and these guys are kind of similar to, there's an enemy in Kirby's Dreamland that shows up on the cloud level. These dudes look all nice and friendly, and then when you hit them, they get really angry and then blow up. I don't even know if it's worth bringing up giant fireballs coming out of the lava like that. I mean, Mario did it. It's like it's too many games to count. Contra 3 comes to mind. Oh, here's a classic video game thing. We got the spikes coming down. This is also Mario 3. Also moments like this in like Mega Man games. Too many to name, but I will show you something that's quite interesting. Watch these spikes. Did a lot of damage. Did not kill you. Not instant death. That's huge. Now we have Lord Gold here. Just when I see a whole bunch of gold like this on this boss, I can't help but think DuckTales and Scrooge McDuck. And then, because everything is Dark Souls, here's your reference to Lord Nito. Or this is very similar to that one boss in Symphony of the Night that's just like dead bodies falling off of it. It's gross, it's awesome. Here is our last guy. Before we pick him up, I want to make it clear that like, so we got 4 buddies in this game. At no point do you ever fight any of them as a boss. In Castlevania 3, which again, this big thing kind of really derives mostly from, you fight Alucard and you fight Grat Dynasty before taking them on as friends. You do not do that in this game. And also, when you become friends with them, you don't shake their hands. It's not that cool moment where the two, like, very crudely done but still impressive, like, animation of them both shaking their hands. They don't do that. And here we have Alucard. What's up, Alucard? How you doing, Alucard? Gebel. Not Alucard is here. And we got the whole team together. And now we are a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles bunch. All together. Let's talk a little more about multiple characters in Castlevania games. Of course, this is nothing new. Like I said, it was a big part of Dracula's Curse, but it's also a huge part of Portrait of Ruin, as well as one of Dawn of Sorrow's extra games, the Julius mode, which basically has the 3 characters you play as in Nightmare mode. And not to get too ahead of ourselves, but even from my story perspective too, Nightmare mode is essentially a remake of Julius mode from Dawn of Sorrow, where your party is the Whip, Magic, and Alucard characters fighting against the main character as the final boss. And what happens when we play through with just Zangetsu, and we kill not Alucard? We get a cool dash, which Richter did have in Symphony. Level 4, we are moving through this game, blasting through it. Let's very quickly break down not Alucard here. We got bats coming out. In the original Castlevania 3, he attacked like this by flapping his cape like that, but he shot fireballs. In Kid Dracula, there is an attack where you shoot bats kind of in an arc above you. And so, since these bats fly out and they kind of go up, I like to think this is a bit of a reference to Kid Dracula, which is a very, very underrated Castlevania game, especially the Game Boy version. And like Alucard from Dracula's Curse, he does not get sub-weapons, and candles that would have sub-weapons hold large item energy. He also could turn into a bat, but now has a charge attack, so he's not totally defenseless, and this is an attack that Alucard will get in Symphony. So moving on to the rest of level 4. Fun fact, you notice that the moon back there, look at that, now it's a half moon. Beginning of the game, it was a little crescent moon. That's not really a reference, I'm just pointing out all the neat details of this game. It's a hell of a game. I think I mentioned this before, but it is nice that you don't have to worry about powering up weapons in this game. Ooh. Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, you know what? This is a good time to point out that this game is very similar to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as we've mentioned before. However, when one of your characters dies, there's no way to bring them back. The only way to bring them back is just to kill all of your enemies. All of your characters. And just refresh that way. Are not Axe Knights. We're going to see a little more Axe Knight action in the coming levels. Having flashbacks to many levels where you were trying to climb up and skeletons and other jerks are throwing bones and whatnot down on you. At least right now, we do not have to worry about Medusa heads as well. Man, more of these friendly skeletons just trying to help out. What a bunch of good dudes, man. I don't think we've actually talked much about the freezing, but Similar to Metroid. Oh, I can't make that jump with him. You can freeze enemies and they turn them into platforms. And we have another one of these mini bosses. This is the fire elemental one. We're just gonna freeze this dude. We'll get our fire. Take care of him. The return of the birds dropping jerk enemies. So now we have not a la carte here. It's so much easier. Oh, here we go. Okay, this is a better example of what I was talking about earlier. So, we got stairs. These fucking axe knife jerks. It's also worth noting, again, this level had a lot of towers, a lot of bell towers and stuff like that. And, you know, towers with bells, that's a common aesthetic for Castlevania games. But again, no clock towers so far. Or no clock towers at all. No big pendulums, no big cogs that you're jumping from. Not the most common thing in a Castlevania game, but I would say one that is sadly missed. Oh, I like the boss already. I like this boss. No reference here except I just dig what a crazy monstrosity this thing is. It's just so many teeth and it's great. This boss is great. Look at all those teeth. It's just a bunch of teeth. Like, what the hell is this even? It's great. I love it. So yes, if you lose your allies, you can get them back by either beating a level or just dying and having them all come back. But there's no secret items that you can find like in TMNT to bring your characters back. Move on to level 5. The boat! We on a boat now. I love the boat. So here we have these like clam teeth looking dudes. They don't look like the Fishman from first level of Castlevania 1, the intro to Dracula's castle. But the way they kind of jump up like this and the way that we're in a water-ish type level is very similar to the Fishmen, the mermen as it were. Oh, and here is a classic Castlevania enemy. Instead of being a giant like skeleton dragon thing, it's now made us like a cool fish monster. And yeah, it's chained to the wall like that, and when you kill it, all the pieces fall down into a random item like that. I don't even know what the hell these things are really just supposed to be. I think it's the giant teeth that are throwing me off. It's just terrifying shit in the sea. You know, people think monsters don't exist. They're in the ocean, man. So here's a different kind of door. This door kind of operates slightly differently. Tell me right now that's not a Mega Man style door. This door is straight up from Mega Man X. Also, at first I thought this was a reference to the haunted portraits in Sweet Home, but those were mirrors. These are actually similar to portraits in Rondo of Blood, and because they also kill you in one hit, we're just gonna freeze them and move on with our lives. I got these nice skeletons kind of pointing in the direction, like, what am I gonna do? Not follow them? Oh yeah, and here's another look at those dragon guys. I killed the last one a little too quickly, but just to get a better look at it, but yep. These dragon guys are all the way back in the first Castlevania game, but notably this time they're just crazy looking fish dudes. So now we have the rain and we got the wind pushing us. This is from a couple of games, but the first one that came to my mind was Ninja Gaiden 2. The second level in Ninja Gaiden 2 is a hell of an endurance thanks to the wind that moves you. If you don't want to bother with this stuff, you can just fly to the top there and skip all this bullshit. Oh yeah, I think maybe another game that has the wind in it, maybe the first game that has wind in it like this. Man, Mario 2, the Lost Levels. Oh, cool. Then we're going to get up here and we're going to see Alfred's best spell, almost pulled directly from another spell that Sypha has in Castlevania 3. Boss time. We get a little bit of Storm Eagle vibe from this boss, from Mega Man X1. We can just be casting spells. Just all day casting spells on this dude. That is basically Storm Eagle's attack from Mega Man X. And now we're officially at the castle. You know, ostensibly Dracula's castle. Like in classic Castlevania style, there are like 2 world maps that we go through. One is the path to the castle, and then another map for the castle. And that enemy is, you know, a pretty common style enemy, one that just goes back and forth, but at the edge of the screen, not in any particular pattern, but depending on where the screen is. Oh, I love all the bloody stuff. Look at that. It's cool. I don't like these Axe Knight dorks though. Here we have hazards that hug the platforms for you. This is an old one. This is in, you know, Mario 2 and Metroid. But oh god, was also in Castlevania 3. Oh, here we go. Just freeze that. Bust it open. Oh, you know what? The freezing things. It's very similar to, you know, Mega Man and of course Metroid, and of course the Creon Conquest. That classic Nintendo game allows us to get a 1-up, kind of similar to Mega Man X. You go to a Flame Mammoth stage after you beat Chill Penguin. The fire is gone and it allows you to go and get a heart. I like this Iron Maiden stage. Kind of reminds me of the lab area in Splatterhouse 2, where you're walking along these tubes with enemies in them and occasionally one will burst out at you. Because everybody thinks Splatterhouse 2 is as amazing as I do. Naturally, this is clearly a Splatterhouse 2 reference. It's got to be. Oh, we got these cute little bunny girls. These bunny girls kind of give me a sexy Parodius vibe, but also, you know, succubi have been in this, the Castlevania series. Like, the succubus was the boss in Symphony of the Night, where you fight Alucard's mother. And also just general, like, cute girls in video games. Maybe not a reference to anything in particular. Okay. Y'all ready for this? Who's that? Tell me right now that's not Scissor Man. Tell me right now that's not Scissor Man. Look at that. It's Scissor Man. How cool is that? Okay, it's just a guy with giant scissors. Maybe it's not the Scissor Man. But how cool was that? Saw that shit and I was very happy. Very happy to see Scissor Man in this game. Also, this room with all the arches kind of reminds me of the 4th level of Castlevania 1 right before you fight Frankenstein, as well as maybe the 1st level of Splatterhouse. You know, the celebrated Splatterhouse game that everybody knows so well. It's definitely references Splatterhouse. It's definitely. That's not just me because I'm the one guy that loves Splatterhouse. No. Oh god. Okay. All right. So, any hardcore original Castlevania fan recognizes this stretch right here. We have these guys that are throwing hammers at you, but the way that the hammer is like boomerang back at you is very similar to how the Axe Knights, the like canonical old school Axe Knights in Castlevania games work, that they, you know, circle back on you. Also, this stretch here with these guys and these Medusa heads definitely reminds you of that stretch in Castlevania 1 right before you get to the Grim Reaper. Thankfully, this section is not that long, but that final run of the Grim Reaper on the 2nd to last level of Castlevania, that separates the children from the adults, let me tell you. And here we have a lady in a bathtub. Obviously, this is a reference to Xerxes for the Nintendo by Hudson Soft. No, it's just a lady in a bathtub. Oh yeah, and right here, not quite Bloody Tears. We got Raining Blood. That's still close enough. So maybe that's a Slayer reference. The moon is almost full. We got level 7 now. And we got library. We got a spooky haunted library. We got these jerks. So haunted library is the theme of this level. And we got evil books. We didn't start really seeing evil books until, I think, Symphony of the Night, Rondo of Blood as well. This is not the most iconic of Castlevania levels, but we have seen them. And also the library from Symphony of the Night is like one of the best songs in that soundtrack. Oh, look at these. Where have we seen these before? This is totally the disappearing blocks from Mega Man. One of the most frustrating recurring things in the Mega Man games. The blocks that went. It is nice that the platforms in this game, they're wider, so they're a little easier to jump on, and they shake a little more. It isn't just an instant blink in and out, and you can see where they're coming. And there's even a moment where like they kind of overlap, so they're like there's a split second where both colored blocks are on the screen at the same time. So even though this is classic old school Mega Man platforming, it is simplified and made much easier. And also because this game you can't move and jump with the dexterity of Mega Man, and you are confined to the stiff jump of Castlevania, this is a really good compromise. Bring this back, but make it fit into this style of gameplay. You know what? Maybe you don't want to deal with them. Don't deal with them. Look at these guys. This is the classic Axe Knight. Except unlike the hammers, these don't boomerang back. Oh, we got the fire guy here, but we can't get through him because we don't have ice. And something that is very common in retro video games, but not too common in Castlevania games. Goddamn conveyor belts. The Mega Man style door, I like it. And this specific area right here kind of reminds me of, there's a level in Castlevania 3 has very similar platforms. Whoop! And it's nice to have not a la carte there when you don't think before you leap. That might not have picked up on the mic, but just now Launchpad was loudly snoring. Here's a fun piece here. Alright, the boss now. We have a door like Mega Man, and then we have a boss that is very, very similar to Sting Chameleon from Mega Man X. And that's the closest you can get to striking a pose, doing that slow motion Castlevania style. Curse the moon! Curse the moon! Got our chandeliers. We got our worms! Those look like worms. They might be bugs, but again, I want to think that hardcore reference to Sweet Home. And this is also like probably legit the hardest level in the game. So remember that jumping on the stairs and catching yourself makes this whole area so much easier. You would not be able to do anything like that in classic Castlevania, let me tell you. Damn it. Ah, I missed the jump. Bop. It's a waste of weapon energy, but it's still really fun. Just a comically oversized axe. If you're going to deviate from tradition, like how you treat the axe in this game, make it hilarious. Oh, and this little mini boss here, definitely something you would see more of in the latter-day Igavania games. Ah. Oh. Still alive. Oh. Well now. Is that really how you're gonna play this? Oh, fucking Christ. Oh, what final level wouldn't be complete without more goddamn frogs? So now we are at the final stretch. And like most final stretches, there is a hidden area beneath the stairway. There was one of these in Super Castlevania 4 and I believe one or two other Castlevania games that I can't think of, but it is quite common. Alright, we're at the final boss for this. Stained glass. Our blood-stained glass. So there is a boss in Castlevania Bloodlines for the Genesis that takes place on the top of a tower like this, and it rotates a little bit. Also, seeing a final level take place here on a top of a tower certainly invokes a little bit of like Super Mario World. And also because we're dealing with the moon and, you know, dark colors and stuff like that, I get a little bit of Kirby's Adventure for the Nintendo vibes from this. Zangetsu's always been an asshole. Maybe he wasn't so bad after all, man. And then here we have the classic shot after beating the game, standing on a cliffside from miles away, you know, always, staring at the castle. But in this playthrough, the castle does not crumble to the ground. Because this is only one of the many, many endings. And in fact, a lot of these endings have their own little references. However, this unlocks the Nightmare mode. And then you have to play through the game as these three characters. And then the final level is slightly different. And there are some references in that as well. To be continued. Immediately. Look at Scissor Man. Look at Scissor Man looking so cool. Look at Bobby. Can't tell you how my heart swelled. How swole my heart became when I saw that Scissor Man. Produced by Iga and Takuya Aizu. Takuya Aizu is the person who was very upset about the My Number 9 Cry Like an Anime Fan on Prom Night commercial. Thank you for playing. Thank you for making this game, Minty. So that was one ending. There's actually still a little bit more to go through. And we still have not even gotten to the giant secret, the big secret that I guarantee you nobody else has spotted. It's coming. All right, we'll wait until the very end to reveal the big, big secret. But we actually got one more level to go through. Whole different stage. This is technically stage 9, not stage 8. And you'll notice that this is very similar to how the walk to Dracula's castle in Simon's Quest is. You kind of walk forward for a while. Normally there's stuff in the way, but then you go down a flight of stairs. And then check this out. This is not exactly a boss rush mode similar to Mega Man, but this is this room, this setup right here is certainly like the Wily boss rush mode from Mega Man. That was what I immediately what it looked like to me. And not a whole lot to talk about in this area. These ghost heads look a little closer to classic Castlevania style ghosts, but they're just kind of like a big evil-looking zombie head as opposed to kind of like a little kind of skeleton-like looking thing. Oh, and by the way, if you weren't aware, we are definitely into spoiler territory. This game's been out for a couple months now, and at this point in the video, you've been watching for a minute. I would like to think that like it's too late to comment now for spoilers. You should have known what you were getting into. So we defeated our Mega Man-esque boss rush mode, kind of. We go in this cool gaping maw. And again, kind of in contrast to classic Castlevania, but also in another similarity to Simon's Quest. Before we get to the last boss, we descend a giant set of stairs, as opposed to ascend a giant set of stairs. Which, you know, I understand why people would be down on Simon's Quest for the way that it treats its ending like that. The Simon's Quest, Dracula's Castle, is like such a disappointment, but I think it is kind of cool in a subversion context. Alright, and here we go. So here's Zangetsu, sitting in his throne, and what's he do with that saucer? He throws it down! How about you? And also because we are going with that Eastern Japanese theme. It is not a goblet of wine. It is a saucer, presumably of sake? I don't know. Oh, God, I gotta... There we go. This is a cool boss fight. I don't know if there's any real specific references to much of anything here. Oh, shoot. I don't know if there's a whole lot of references in this boss fight, in this last level, other than just like a lot of cool, you know, Japanese folklore stuff, I'm guessing. And also, this is just good subversion of the gameplay here that you are now... That you're only fighting as Miriam. This does feel like a good Castlevania boss fight. It does feel like you really are fighting Dracula, you know? Oh. Damn it. And I will say this. I appreciate them taking the Castlevania 1 route to the last boss and not the Castlevania 3 route to the last boss. In Castlevania 1, when you died at Dracula, you started again right outside Dracula's door. Castlevania 3, when you died at Dracula, you started all the way back at the beginning of a very difficult level. Though, I gotta say, a little weird, a 1-up? That's always here. I feel like a 1-up here, so you have infinite tries, ostensibly. Maybe a little too easy, but then again, I have died twice now so far on this boss, so I guess I can't really talk. And then we all work together, power teamwork! And then we all strike a pose, and we slow down. And so on the last ending, we stood on the cliff here and we looked at the castle, but the castle did not crumble. The castle does not crumble in this ending either. However, when you play solo as Zangetsu, with only some of the special weapons, when you leave a couple of the people alive, the castle crumbles. When you get to the ending and you don't have not Alucard, the castle crumbles. And if you manage to get through the game without getting any special weapons, without killing or taking on any of the people, the castle crumbles there. If you manage to play the game as Zangetsu and you kill all your cohorts or your allies, you get the bad ending, and the ending ends with the line, "A long, horrible night descended upon the land," which is, of course, like, that's alluding back to Simon's Quest. What a horrible night to have a curse. So if you manage to beat the game on Nightmare mode, Zangetsu's soul seems to still be alive. He wakes at the top of a building, and then the camera scrolls down. It's the intro to Mega Man 2 in reverse. How fucking cool is that? Answer very. The end, question mark. I am curious as to which one is the canonical one that'll lead into Nocturne Ritual of the Night, but that is not even the craziest thing. That is not even the biggest secret of Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. You know what? I gotta go full screen on this because y'all ain't ready for the secret here. Throughout this entire game, what did we see constantly? At every fork in the road, what did we see? We saw some skeletons. And they just hanging out, sitting there, pointing the right direction, helping us out. Where else did we see skeletons in this game? We mean I saw like a skull here or like a zombie head here, but I mean I'm talking like a full head to toe, top to tip skeleton. Where else do we see skeletons in this game? Answer, we didn't. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first game where the skeletons stopped fighting. There are no fighting skeletons in this game. They're just nice skeletons hanging out, showing you the right direction. No jerk skeletons in this game at all. They stopped the skeletons from fighting! They did it! It's the best game ever! Thanks so much for watching. This has been Stop Skeletons from Fighting, and this has been a long playthrough of Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. I'm looking forward to playing the full, I guess the real game? I want to say real game, that doesn't seem right, but I really enjoyed this game a lot, and I can't wait to see what you guys got next, man. So thanks so much for watching. Stay powerful.